when the CDC investigators were doing their investigation, a couple of people tried to tell them about the school, but it made no impression on them, which was further confirmation that they weren't familiar with, the power of sick building syndrome. So my thought was that I could step up and tell them about it, help clear out some of this confusion, and that would be my contribution.
And did that work?
Nope.
So in high school you tried to tell them?
Yeah.
And what was the response that you got?
You're not a doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had the most amazing attitude that the illness seemed to be a lack of Advil or a lack of aspirin. People had absolutely no interest in trying to find out why this part of the school was so bad. That always amazed me. These people, their careers were suffering. They were obviously having long-term effects from this, and yet some part of their mind that tells a person to, well, let's find out what this is and fix it, simply wasn't there.
They just wanted to put a Band-Aid, Advil.
That was it.
So you spent all your high school years pretty sick.
Yes.
Like you did when you were living in the hotel.
Yep. And I made the correlation that I was getting better in the summer, same as with the Moldy Hotel. If I stayed away long enough, I knew that it wasn't in the house that I was living. This was strictly from school.
So what were your symptoms at this point in high school?
Cognitive headaches, I had nosebleeds, fatigue.
Pain in your body, or did you not have that as much?
I wouldn't say pain, no. I can't remember any particular pain.
Okay.
Just a sense of extreme distress and
overall sickness. Unwell. Just this feeling of no motivation and.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So then, after high school.
Well, I couldn't break this type of illness after leaving high school.
So where you had previously recovered each summer.
Yeah.
After high school, it didn't.
My recovery was less and less. And I worked for a year after school, and I just wasn't beating this thing. And in an act of desperation, I thought, I'll join the Army. That'll toughen me up or it'll kill me. Either way is good. And it was my vast misfortune to wind up in a moldy bunker in Germany.
Oh, just can't seem to catch a break.
So there again, I was faced with the situation where I was trying to get outside as much as possible, but it wasn't working very well, and I still had a very limited understanding of the power of cross-contamination.
But you kind of learned that there, right? How to decontaminate.
I learned the procedures, but I just didn't really think of applying them that strongly to mold, because there was no concept that mold was anything more than an allergen.
So let's go to that. So what did you do in the military, in the Army?
I was a nuclear missile launcher specialist. So I had some special training in biological warfare that included an emphasis on charged particles and radioactivity. A little more so than you would normally get.
Yeah.
Because they expected that as a nuclear missile unit, if there was a nuclear war, that we would be the ones who would be educating others on how to deal with decontamination of nuclear exposures.
So what did that look like? What did you have to do?
A lot of washing, a lot of work with Geiger counters, where one tries to determine the amount of radiation absorbed by particular objects and make decisions over what had to be abandoned and what could be used for short periods of time, and special training in how to behave. For example, in a hot zone, if you put your helmet down, you can expect your helmet to become radioactive, and then you put it back on your head and you've got something radioactive very close to your brain. So that was something we were taught not to do. And it seems like a minor detail, except that when I realized how reactive I was to mold, I already had a model in place for how you could put something in contact with a highly contaminated area, and only that portion of what had been exposed would be problematic.
Because it was infected in the same way.
Yeah, the mold experts were going on the basis that you could put up Anderson air sampling monitors pretty much anywhere and get an idea of whether or not the room was bad. And I didn't feel that fit the facts, because I knew I felt terrible on one side of a room and could feel better by moving to the opposite side of the room. So I realized that their sampling methods didn't fit the facts any more than you could walk into a room with a Geiger counter and wave it around and find out whether something in the corner was radioactive.
Interesting.
So yeah, I was very lucky to have this model of what was going on already instilled, so that when the mold phenomenon came along, I had a different conceptual framework already in place.
It's like you're almost innately new to avoid, and then now you're learning decontamination strategies when you're in the Army.
So it was very useful for that. Absolutely.
Almost like that was designed.
Yeah. No, that's a huge piece of the puzzle for you. I mean, thank God you were actually in that, even though. So what did the bunker do? You said it was a moldy bunker you were in, and how long were you there, and what happened with your health at that point? Because you were already sick when you entered the Army, right?
Yeah. But I was maintaining, as long as I kept up a certain low level of avoidance.
Because, I mean, you had to pass boot camp, and
absolutely.
I mean, you had to have been well enough at that point to be able to do that.
And the barracks in boot camp were old World War II barracks, and they were moldy. But somehow they didn't affect me the same way this bunker did. That was a whole nother animal. That stuff was so powerful. The basement armory flooded, and cardboard boxes got covered with black mold. And people down in the basement, the staff sergeant just was absolutely laid out with some neurological illness that no doctors could understand. And all through the unit, people started getting strange infections that they couldn't recover from. And then a flu hit, and my unit made history as the first nuclear missile unit withdrawn from the active duty roster for rate of illness.
Wow.
That had never happened up until that time, which was 1976. So
did they figure out that it was the bunker?
No, the commanding officer called the Biological Warfare Division, because at this level of sickness, he was exploring all the options. I mean, this was unique. And the biological weapons people came, and they inspected the place, and they applied all their tests. And they couldn't figure it out. And when they were shown the mold, they said, well, mold is an allergy, but go ahead and clean it up.
Oh, jeez.
And both my commanding officer and I thought that there was more to it than that. I discussed it with him. And one of the things I proposed at the time was that the Nazis were very big on using DDT. And I mean, they just dusted everything with DDT. And I speculated that perhaps pesticide residues down in the armory basement could have been synergizing with this mold to create a more powerful toxin.
Wow. So this is more powerful than what you felt anywhere else you'd been.
Yeah, absolutely. It was very special. And he told me that, well, we'll clean up the mold, and if the rate of illness doesn't go down, I'll order an emergency evacuation of the garrison. So he took me very seriously. So in the meantime, naturally, somebody's got to go down in the basement and clear out the mold.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
It's not you, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
You of all people?
Yeah. So my squad is detailed to go down and clean up the mold. Now, I'd already been talking to my CO about this, and I said, you know, I really think this is what's causing the problem here. So can we use our M17A1 gas masks?
Yeah.
And he said, well, that's a good idea. And he was in favor of it. But he called up battalion headquarters and asked for permission. Denied. Those filters are for warfare, and we're not going to waste them for some harmless mold.
Oh, my.
So we were sent down there to clean up the mold with no protection.
Oh.
So I'm down there carrying boxes covered with this gooey black mold out of there as best I can. And in the meantime, they've got other members of my squad mopping the cement floor with gallons of bleach. Yeah, which, as we know now, is an extremely bad combination.
Right, because mold and bleach are not good together.
Right.
Yeah.
They are known to, bleach is known to make mold worse.
Yeah.
And bleach is kind of a bad thing for you anyway. And in a confined space like that, there was very little ventilation, as to say none. So we were really suffering down there.
Oh my goodness. How long were you doing this?
After a couple hours, my squad leader looked over at me.